Good afternoon. Rhyme of the Times 2022 Review of the Year. Part 3, People and Events, Act 1. Great battles fought in so much sport. Lionesses can't be caught. Tennis players on court and in court. Novak caught out. The golf world fraught with many players bought. Stokes a special sort. Red roses fall short. 2022 was a mixed bag for British teams. Firstly, the Lionesses fulfilled our dreams. For 56 years there'd been little to display. The FA's trophy cabinet had seemed sweet FA. The Women's Euros in July saw the picture transformed. Onto the world stage the English team stormed. Hosted by England with record numbers of fans, a sense of anticipation began to flow from the stands. Louder each day the mantra, "It's coming home," the song that, for the men, had become a millstone. And once the nerves were conquered, the girls took control, rattling in an amazing 22 goals. Won all 6 matches with just 2 goals conceded. Who won the Golden Boot? England's Beth Mead did. Did people think England could beat Germany? As the Wembley final arrived, there were many. The last day of July in the long summer heat, Wembley hosted a 1966 final repeat. All level at 90 minutes meant extra time when England found a way to get over the line. 2-1 with goals from Toone and Kelly. 17 million watched the drama on telly. And Wembley Stadium was full to the rafters. No violence, no nastiness, just joy and laughter. The women had won. No histrionics, no fuss. And the FA Trophy cabinet no longer gathers dust. In November, the World Cup and the Three Lions chance. Our boys had reached a showdown in Doha with France. Fairly steady progress up to this point meant England had booked themselves an appointment with the reigning world champions who weren't playing great. Was this to be the day of our glorious fate? The day the young Lions, with Captain Kane being able to finally rid themselves of their bottle jobs label. England looked fine but were 2-1 behind. Then got a penalty that would have bought extra time. But Kane's second spot kick could have taken out a drone. And once again the team, not the cup, were coming home. The final itself was real fantasy football. Argentina and France gave us fun to see football. Often the final is a game that's too tense. This final was all about the famous 2-10s. Half-time came and Argentina were cruising. 20 minutes left, France still getting a bruising. Argentina singing, the French fans unhappy. Enter stage right, Kylian Mbappe. 2 goals in 2 minutes. The game turned on its head. Now the Argentinians were the glum ones instead. Extra time, Messi and Mbappe traded goals, but penalties were needed to see who took gold. Messi rolled his in, audacious, outrageous. Mbappe smashed in his 4th goal. So courageous. But all he received was a Golden Boot gong, because his teammates got their penalties wrong, and so Messi was presented with the Jules Rimet. Will he be at the next World Cup? Well, he may. At 35 he still showed that he can be the best, as long as on and off the pitch he takes his rest. A spectacular ending to a controversial competition. The jury's still divided on FIFA's decision. Should the greatest football show have been held where human rights and free speech are brutally quelled? Hostile climate, green concerns, many migrants who've died. The choice of Qatar attracted critics worldwide. But the sport itself was some of the best ever seen. and if it helps shine the world light on the regime, instead of being just elaborate sports washing, this could mean real change with the whole planet watching. Epiphany prompted by the world's microscope. Then again Russia showed us the folly of such hope. And right to the end, Qatar would have it their way in spite of whatever the world had to say. So the final award ceremony was most bizarre, a piece of tradition from the Emir of Qatar. Before receiving the thing for which he most wished, Messi was veiled in a net called a bisht, a sacred cloak made from camel and goat hair, appropriate for one about to be Pele's goat heir. The Champions League also didn't come home, and in June Liverpool fans had much to bemoan. The Champions League final on a hot Paris night had turned into an unseemly fight. Outside the ground, the gendarmerie demonstrated an array of armoury, including a sprinkling of salt and pepper, unsavoury scenes, police beef unfettered. Liverpool fans' sad season was now complete. 3 finals, no goals, 2 draws, 1 defeat. The kick-off had a 35 minutes delay. 1-0 to Real Madrid ended Red's real bad day. The city of Liverpool had a parade lined up for the fans to celebrate not winning the cup. This was not quite a celebrating matter, the much heralded quadruple now in tatters. The French dismissed crowd problems as Brits abroad and talked of industrial ticket fraud. Later, though, an investigation found poor planning caused most of the chaos at the ground. To the egg-shaped ball, and the girls did it again. The British women rugby team outshone the men. In autumn in Auckland, the Red Roses came close but succumbed 34-31 to the hosts. 18 minutes gone, England led the Black Ferns. Then a red card for Thompson and the whole match turned. For an hour England were bravely defending to stop their 30-match winning streak ending. And with skill and strength they did so well. But the numerical advantage would finally tell. New Zealand won a final to be long remembered, their 6th World Cup coming on the 12th of November. The next day, there were England celebrations unfettered as the men's 2020 team went one better. In a World Cup also being played down under, England in the semi had torn India asunder. In the final against Pakistan, they had few scares and took the trophy with 6 balls to spare. Ben Stokes was again the man for the moment, with timely interventions to destroy the opponent. And though he looks like just your ordinary bloke, there's something superhuman about Ben Stokes. The pairing of Stokes with Brendan McCullum seems to have transformed Test cricket and the England team. Where Stokes leads, the world will one day follow, playing the 5-day game like there's no tomorrow, forcing victories from apparent nailed-on draws with outrageous declarations and record-breaking scores. 3 Test series wins for the England men. Since June their Test match result is 9 out of 10. In the first tour of Pakistan since 2006, Ben's England literally hit the home side for 6. 2020 batting in front of astonished fans gained England a 3rd ever series win in Pakistan. 3-0, meaning it was their biggest margin ever, backing themselves when there's no margin for error. The year started with Novak Djokovic hoping to be playing in the Australian Open, but Melbourne border guards cancelled his visa, treating him just like your ordinary geezer. The reason for the rejection was because being unjabbed meant you can't enter Oz. The authorities didn't care about big egos. If he ain't got the jabs, then back he goes. Then the ball was back in their court as an appeal for Novak's by his team was sought. Immigration Minister Alex Hawke kept an ear on the public opinion and talk, so all week it was a tennis teaser. Would Hawke cancel a second visa? Late Friday, he finally answered yes, but Novak again sought legal redress. So he went back into detention, praying for more court intervention. So his lawyers had their showdown in court, saying 2 cancelled visas is 1 double fault. Immigration Minister Hawke, however, had spent a week putting his case together, and much of the Oz public had thought it's 2 missed jabs that should make a double fault. Novak's 2 missed shots meant he should concede. After a week of deliberation, Mr. Hawke agreed, and despite again daring to challenge Hawke's eye, Novak lost his appeal and was told goodbye. Brash and bold, he was taken aback. As to the airport, he was taken back. As Novak took his flight homeward bound, sympathy for him was thin on the ground. But Tennis Australia also didn't look entirely squeaky clean because of Craig Tiley. The top Aussie tennis guy initially had allowed Djokovic to come officially. He'd wanted to give him a medical exemption. Having COVID in December made him an exception. And so the world tennis number 1 had assumed he had the authority to come. However, Tiley said he'd based his decisions on Djokovic's inaccurate submissions. All in all, it made for pretty awful optics for Aussie tennis, Tiley, and also Djokovic. At the end of the day, Australian rules are clear. Without a vaccination, no one's welcome here. The final took 5.5 hours to be decided. Medvedev and Nadal could barely be divided. The Russian was 2 sets to love up. Amazingly, Rafa still won the cup. At 35, superhuman endeavour to win the second longest Open final ever. 21 Grand Slams the Spaniard had got, capitalising on Novak's 2 missed shots. Recently, the final twist came to this tale. Novak's ban for being deported was curtailed. Normally, when kicked out for doing something wrong, Australia issues a ban that's 3 years long. Maybe it's influence, maybe it's his fame. But in next year's Aussie Open, we'll see Novak again. Nadal then made it 22 Grand Slams in France, where his young opponents simply had no chance. A rude awakening on the Roland Garros clay for Casper Ruud, who was blown away. Ruud's the first Norwegian ever to play in a Grand Slam final. Could he win? No way. Nadal blew him clean out of the water. The 3 sets took barely 2 hours and a quarter. The Spaniard's 14th French Open win finished off with 11 games on the spin. Nadal's run ended in London SW19. In the Wimbledon semi, he had to leave the scene. His injury meant Aussie Kyrgios progressed to a final full of touch and wonderful finesse. From a set down, Djokovic won it in 4 against a genius talent, but erratic and flawed. 3 huge names this year hung up their rackets. Williams, Federer, Barty could no more hack it. The landscape of the women's game became Serena with the exit of the force of nature that is Serena. The 40-year-old fought till she dropped. But even for Miss Williams, Father Time can't be stopped. September the 3rd in the Arthur Ashe Arena was the last pro match for the peerless Serena. Although also 40, he's not an old codger, but injuries finally wore down poor old Roger. For 25-year-old Ash Barty, she was still in her prime, but had a different motivation for calling time. Achieving her dreams and being mentally tired meant the tennis star felt it was time for retirement. For 2 weeks in February, we had the staging of the Winter Olympics hosted by Beijing. Putin apparently delayed invading Ukraine in order to not undermine the games. For China and Russia, it turned out self-defeating, as the event's biggest story was Russia's cheating. Their 15-year-old figure skater, provided some unwelcome positive data. This positive gave a negative impression of the drugs with which she had been messing. She had helped her team win a Russian gold, but the medal wasn't given to her to hold. Kamila Valieva's talents can't be dismissed, the first female to do a quadruple twist. The CIS then made a generous call. She could take part in the individuals after all. They considered the drugs taken to be mild abuse. Of more concern to them, they said, this was child abuse. This surprise twist in the fate of the quad twist girl had rivals and critics in an angry whirl. Other skaters figuring they'd been treated like mugs competing against someone who'd taken banned drugs. Still, Kamila was invited to come forth and win. But in the final she came fourth and won not a thing. In late March, a huge shock in World Cup history. The Euros winners were out, a football mystery. North Macedonia won with a late goal in Rome. Italy condemned to watch the World Cup from home. Because of the barbaric acts of the Russian loon, the final World Cup place wasn't known till June. And then it was World Cup pain for Ukraine as Bale bailed out the Welsh team again. 1-0 was the score in the Millennium Stadium, so no trip to Qatar for the Ukrainians. Boris Becker was a Grand Slam winner 6 times, but in April was found guilty of financial crimes. From a tennis court ace to a humbling court case, for Becker this was a big fall from grace. From serving aces to serving 30 months, he will then serve another 6 years of bankruptcy. Jake Daniels on Monday, 16th of May, made that day a truly historic day. The first male soccer pro in the UK to publicly announce to the world that he's gay. The 17-year-old Blackpool players led the way. The overwhelming world response, fair play. On June the 9th, the Live Golf Tour got underway, much to the disapproval of the PGA. The new Saudi-backed rival golf competition tempted players with a lucrative vision. At the Centurion Club, they had just teed off when the PGA had all the rebels peed off. They were told they were all suspended, their PGA membership indefinitely ended. The riches on offer obscenely splendid had many golf purists deeply offended. And so your Westwoods, Mickelsons and Johnsons tried to calm critics and their collective conscience. And golf civil war simmered for the rest of the year. Rory McIlroy's disgust in particular was clear. The Commonwealth Games opened late July in Brum, with Peaky Blinders, Lenny Henry and some of his chums. We had a cultural show of the history of the city. Next day we got down to the sporting nitty-gritty. The Queen, though, again just couldn't make it. An image of good health, she could no more fake it.